I bought a bunch of computer stuff online to build my first computer. I don't know what I'm doing. We work on cars. This is Overnight Success. I'm going to install the CPU onto the motherboard. This is an AM4 socket. These have to be indexed. There's a small triangle right here on the CPU. That needs to be lined up with this triangle portion on the AM4 socket. We lift this little lever here, pull it up, place the CPU into the socket. It dropped in, very positive. You can tell what was going on. And then we close this lever. This is the first time doing this, so I'm kind of getting a feel for it. It felt fine. It felt tighter than I expected when I pushed down. I'm going to be putting the cooler that came with it on, so I have to remove these spacers. We can take those out right now with a screwdriver. Lift that right off. I'm going to install the cooler now. It's just an aluminum finned radiator with a fan attached to it. And there's this thermal stuff right on here. It's some sort of paste or glue, I'm not exactly sure. But it helps bond the CPU to here and create good thermal transfer. And let's see, just set it on there. I believe all the screws are lined up. I'm going to take this little cover off in order to access the bolts better. It's got a little bit of spring tension. Feels creaky and weird. So I'm going to go really even, just a few turns, maybe half turns, all the way around. Similar to what you do for a gasket on a car. You know, you kind of want to jump around from point to point and make a some sort of cross pattern just to help it set even. Reinstall the trim ring around the fan now. And then plug in the fan. It's located right here. It's going to vary depending on the manufacturer and model. And that's that. I'm going to install the RAM now onto the motherboard. These also need to be indexed. There's a small groove here, and there is the tab here fits inside here. Yeah, there's a way better way to say that. It's important to line up this notch. There's a little mating notch here. In order to optimize the memory, I'm not certain on this, but this is supposed to be dual channel, and I don't know which particular one, so I'm just selecting these two. So, just going to line it up here, slide it down. I feel like both sides should move, but I guess they don't. That's it? That can't be it. That's not it. That's it. You have to push harder. You have to push down harder than I would have expected. So if it's your first time doing this, as it's my first time doing this, it feels like you're pushing too hard. But it goes. It just, yeah, I'm not sure if going at an angle like this is the right way. I'm going to try to go very straight, get it in there, push it all the way down. And then actually, if you push down here, it activates this for you. Onto my memory or my hard drive. This is for my operating system. I chose this. It's like 250 gigs. I chose it just because I figured it'd be simpler, a lot less wiring, and I'm just going to put my operating system and things like that on it. There is a notch here, and there's the same notch location inside the socket here, and you have to be careful because there's multiple different kinds. So I've seen people taking these risers out, but this is the same height as this, and I thought that made sense to me. So I'm just going to go ahead and push it in like that. That went nicely. And it's a really small screw, and it has a little bit of Loctite on it already from the factory. This came with the motherboard. And then I am just going to install this screw down in it, and it should sink this part down like so. I believe that's it. All right, installing the motherboard into the case. There's a little chart down here inside the case that tells you which screw locations to use for which board. And in my case, I'm going to have to move 3 of these spacer, risers, adapter, whatever. Spacers, they look like that. And they go inside these little areas here. These risers that they came with, one had a little like a pin on it, like an alignment pin. I felt like it was pushing the board up and causing it to flex. There was also another one that I removed because it didn't have a screw location behind it. It didn't have a through hole, and I thought that might rub on the circuit board. So I removed it and selected only the positions that support the board where there are holes for it. I'm going to install the screws now and lock down the motherboard. They just go around the edges, and that's it. So there's this little trim piece that indicates where the different ports are on the back of your computer. I failed to put it in. It feels like quite a rookie move. It feels like there's probably a more efficient and kind of slick way to install all these components. Yeah, put that in the right way as well. And put it in before you put in the motherboard. Install the power supply. Goes down in this bay down here. Make sure that you put the power supply in the right orientation. There's a fan inlet down here on the bottom, and only one side of the power supply has an opening for the fan. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten up these screws now. I watched videos to learn where all these things go, and I thought I had it all figured out, and then once I kind of got in here and all these wires were hanging out on the board. I kind of forgot. It's difficult to, if you don't do it all the time, to just identify these things and know exactly where they go. So I kind of got to the point where I was just matching up what fit, and then reading the label and then tracing it and seeing where it went. And that seemed to work pretty good. I found everything that I wanted. Onto the GPU. Here we go. That's it. And I had to remove two of these little covers, these little plates, from this location here on the case in order to allow the graphics card to fit in there with the ports available. Let's get this GPU in. Oh, look at that. This part right here. Good stuff. All right. And this seems to go in very similar to the way the RAM went in. Let me just line it up nicely here. Seems good. There it goes. And you can't see from here, but there is a little tab here that popped up when it snapped in. It actually went in really, really easy. So the supplied cable that came with the power supply, it had like a breakout here so that it could go to maybe possibly multiple devices. I'm not sure how it works, but I didn't like it at all. Wires is gross. So I looped it back really nicely and then put this marine grade shrink tube on here. It's pretty minimal. I stripped out any wires that I could. It's a semi-modular power supply. Put it together. Turn it on. I feel like something should be happening. I don't know. Failing to post. Well, this is not looking good. Got a new monitor. HDMI.
Remember, only you can prevent forest fires.